Rain, go away. Dog wants deGrom day. The Yanks head west with their hats in their hands, and we do a first half retrospective. Diamond Diehards is on. Joe Rizzo here, bringing you baseball along with the dog, Jeff Healy. We were working on some offline stuff tonight. We were starting to do one of our promos. We're getting our little TikTok game on with our I don't know, some kind of, she's some kind of producer, social media manager, Katie Healy. And yeah, we were doing a little background work, and the dog and I are like, you know what? Why don't we just do a show? So if anybody's out there and you're on the live stream, we're certainly glad to have you. Don't forget, you can find us everywhere on social media and TikTok. Go check it out pretty soon. By the time you're listening to this, I don't know. I mean, there might be something there, but get in early. You'll be in on the ground floor of Diamond Diehards TikTok followers. We're at Diamond Diehards there. Instagram, Twitter, everywhere that you're on social media. You can find us at Diamond Diehards. I keep forgetting to plug the dog at Jeff Healy 8, the number 8. That's how you can follow the dog on Twitter. Go check out our Facebook group. If you're on the group, you're possibly catching this live stream as we do it, or in some other capacity at some other point. And we also have a Facebook page. The kind of the pages they do for business, the groups they do for fun. I don't know what the hell it is. We're on both. And of course, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you find your podcast, YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and what do they, smash the alert bell or whatever it is, so you get alerts. I think that's like the new thing. So check us out in all those places. And don't forget about our pals at FMS Graphics, fmsgraphics.com. A family-owned, family-run business for the last 50 years, dog. fmsgraphics.com. fmsgraphics.com for all your printing and promotional needs. And our pals at Sports Maps, SPORTSMAPZ, sportsmaps.com. A great way to have a wonderful piece of art for your home, your office, or your home office. Go check them out at sportsmaps with a Z.com. As always, when we start these shows, we have Dog, our veteran of the day emeritus, honor somebody who is also a veteran, and we will call them the veteran of the day. And that brings in the Dog. Welcome, Dog.
Thank you, Riz. Got a one here. I'm picking up from one of the groups that I follow from my old buddies in the Connecticut Army National Guard. This one's from a soldier who's deployed overseas currently for Combined Joint Task Force Horn of Africa over in Djibouti. So just wanted to say Djibouti. So our Veteran Day is Staff Sergeant Joshua Fish. He was selected as the headquarters company 1st Battalion, 102nd Infantry Regiment, the Soldier Spotlight for June 2021. Staff Sergeant Fish is the only soldier in the Army National Guard and only 11 in the entire United States Army who is a master trainer for both the Raven and Puma unmanned aerial systems, so UAS. So cutting edge stuff that most people call drones. He has shared all of his knowledge across the rest of the battalion, and has also trained multiple different soldiers from multiple different countries while he's deployed overseas. So, as part of Task Force Iron Gray, which is their regiment. So, Staff Sergeant Joshua Fish doing an outstanding job training everybody on how to use those unmanned aerial systems to help keep soldiers safe on the ground. So, Staff Sergeant Joshua Fish, our veteran of the day.
As always, a special veteran of the day. They're all special, and some come in different shapes and sizes. And we've had some wonderful ones that we've been happy about. We had some, like last show, that are sad and close to home, but always great to have the privilege to honor some of our veterans. So thank you very much, Dog. And just as we are about to hit the air, what do you tell me, Dog? You're watching Twitter, and what do you see?
Not tonight. I see Steve Cohen, the uber responsive social media guru of the New York Mets and also the owner. coming out and saying that they gave it a shot, but the weather is going to be too tough tonight. So the Met game has to be postponed. So no deGrom day tonight.
So we asked the rain to go away because Dog wanted to see deGrom days. But the thing is, Dog, it's almost better. I feel like in a way, right? That 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 you didn't get him tonight because my fear would have been um, that you do it right and you start the game and all of a sudden the rain comes or there's thunder, there's lightning, and now all of a sudden like he pitched an inning
Yeah.
and now you just blew his entire start.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, for the Mets, there's like nothing better than like doubleheader 7 inning games, right? I mean, that completely maximizes the Mets' typical advantage of a couple good starters and one or two good guys in the pen, and that actually lines up perfectly with the 7 inning games. So so yeah, if we can keep deGrom out and make sure he's got a nice easy runway for him in a game, that's absolutely what we want to do. We definitely don't want to blow 2 or 3 innings and then have him shut down again and then not be able to come back out after a rain delay.
Yeah, when you have a pitcher like that, right? um it's there's a couple of reasons, right? Especially like when you're at home, you figure that you're going to get a bigger crowd. This is a Tuesday game. What are you going to get on a Wednesday? Did they say if they're going to do a double header, Dog?
I did not
That's
see that announced yet.
so
So
that's the other
all I saw
thing.
was the
Like
announcement of that. Yeah.
if you're the Mets, that would become a huge advantage if all of a sudden you could start him in a 7 inning game in a double header where you're like, oh, okay, now that's probably he'll be close to throwing a complete game, or
Yeah.
he won't tax your bullpen out at all, and now you just gave everybody an extra day off, and you have the all-star break coming up, so you could really go all out to win these last few games before the all-star break. So there's a lot of positives to it, but there's been a lot of weird stuff going on. I mean, I call it weird stuff, but I mean there's a lot of stuff that's been going on with these teams raining out their games. Like the Yankees did it against the Angels. The White Sox did it against who? Against the Indians, I think. The Twins did it against the White Sox before that. This is like over the last like week or so, or week or 10 days. I mean, teams are playing fast and loose with the rules. Teams are trying to find an advantage to postponing these games. I mean, and now this one's legit. Like we're Dog and I are in the New York area on the New Jersey side, and there's like literally. I mean, it's a good thing that Dog has power.
That's why I keep looking up.
I know.
It's the end of days out there.
Like Dog, if Dog takes off the headphone mic, it's you could hear the thunder in the background. That's how loud it is. It's and where I am up in North Jersey, way at the top, um, trees down all over the place. So I mean, there were crazy winds, lightning, real severe downpours and stuff like that. So this is, this one's a legit rain out. Like the Mets don't want people coming to their park on deGrom Day and having to cancel the game. I mean, they definitely gave it a try, but there's also that part where they're like, well, now if we have a doubleheader at some point down the line and he's pitching, I mean, if you're the Mets, listen, I mean, you want that guy pitching in every doubleheader game that you can get. It's a huge advantage to have him in those games. I mean, in the 9 inning games, people might be like, well, then he's pitching more of a percentage in the 9 inning, of the 9 inning game. Say he goes 8 innings, whatever. He never goes 8 innings. Like he always goes. The best you're usually getting out of him is 7.
Yeah.
But if you score a run in like the second inning, like you might just win the game 1-0 in 7 innings, and you don't have to worry about like this whole thing that's plagued him throughout his career, Dog, which is the fact that he's got great numbers for his career, and he only has to keep it up for a few more years to have those become like Hall of Fame numbers, but he doesn't have it in the win loss column because they've blown myriad leads for him. Or it's just that in this day and age, guys are coming out of the game earlier, and he's not an exception to that. So a guy with his numbers, even 10 years ago, would probably have twice the amount of wins. And I don't even know if that's an exaggeration. Dog, you're
No.
really the numbers guy, but I think it's a pretty sound venture to kind of say that this stuff is really the de-emphasis on starting pitcher wins has really happened over the last like 7, 8 years, or I would say the first real benchmark to that was when Felix Hernandez won the Cy Young, and he had like 13 wins. He was like 13-12. I think that's when the
Yeah.
worm really turned. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would say in terms of doubling them, I completely agree with that with deGrom. I mean, probably about 50% was just the Mets just going out of their way to never score for the guy. So he was there's so many times he came out of a game, down 1-0, up, maybe up 2-1 and they blow it late or something like that. But like, just like quality start, then there's like ridiculously good like deGrom start, and like he's had ad infinitum, all those that he should have had. He should have been going out on the winning side so many times. It was a 1-1 or 1-0 against him that he was going out on. So probably at least 50% of that was just the Mets not scoring for him until this year. And then the other 50% is probably just like you said, it's kind of a broader phenomenon across baseball that you're just not seeing that guy come in.
It's it's um it's definitely changed the outlook of teams. It's changed things like contracts and things like that. When you're talking about money and you're talking about years and terms, it's almost like a lot of these contracts are built into the fact that the guy's going to have Tommy John surgery at some point in it, and that he's going to come back and he might come back even better. And you're paying him for 6 years, but you're going to only get four, or you're paying him for seven. You're only going to really get five. It's all built into that, and it's not predicated around these guys who would just were perennial 20 game winners. Like, Jack Morris in the 80s won 22 more games than anybody with Dave Stieb second, and you look at Jack Morris's numbers and you're like, oh, wait, huh? Really? Like he was that good? But yeah, for that era when the emphasis was on winning games, he won more than anybody. So that was the measure of
Yep.
of what a good effective pitcher was at the time. Um, Now it's whip, it's other different levels of analytics, which brings me to something interesting, Dog. And I know that as we completed this, our first Yankees Mets series of the season just the other day, uh, I think probably I guess you guys in the Healy household were mostly watching um, Gary, Keith, and Ron. We flip around between the Yes guys or the Yankee side and the Met announcers, because we're a dual family household, and because like I like to listen to the Mets guys too. But there was something really interesting, and I can't remember if it came up in the Yankee Met game or a Yankee game right before that. And David Cohn and Paul O'Neill were talking, and they were talking about the state of the game today, and our like the spider attack, the sticky stuff, spin rates and all this other junk. And Paul O'Neill was talking about like analytics, and he's like, he was asking about he was asked about analytics, and he's like, I think there's a place for it, but there's just too much of it going on, or too much trust in it, or whatever he said. And then they asked David Cohn what he thought of what Paul just said, and he goes, well, I think anybody that says analytics and just uses it with such a broad stroke doesn't really know exactly what they're, equating it to. Like you can't just say analytics and have it, cover every single thing. And it's really interesting to see those guys who played literally together, right? Same exact era,
Yep.
and we're teammates and are both really like well-respected guys. It's just interesting the way the conversation around analytics is taking place today. Like we got our buddies from Shigon Nation, and they talk about, they trash a lot of the analytics stuff in terms of that the people that are in charge and making decisions are the ones that are just looking at things on, paper, so to speak, or computer screen, and they don't realize like the applications of it in the game and how it can affect the game. They're not thinking of the, you make one drop in the water and it makes a big ripple. Like how does that affect it? You start emphasizing launch angles and, three-true outcomes, and all of a sudden like nobody hits the ball and you're like, what did we do? Like this sounded great, but like what are we doing? Like we're teaching a generation of kids how to not play baseball or whatever game we're calling this, launch ball, spin ball, I mean, like whatever you want to call it, right? There's got to be like a place where the rubber meets the road. And I think a lot of these old school guys, which you and I are in the demographic, but I don't know if we all hold the exact same beliefs as all these people. I think you and I are unique creatures. You and I disagree even on some things. In the end, we sit down and watch baseball games together, right? And we have fun doing it. But what I think is a lot of the new school people think the old school people are against analytics. And I don't think that is the case at
Yeah.
all. I think there's an understanding at a different level. People better than us, dog. People who actually played the game, to the highest levels and professional levels, and understand a little bit differently, like how to coach it and how to affect these changes in the ball player's mind when this stuff is actually happening and being thrust upon them. Like there's definitely a place for it, but I I sort of agree with O'Neill, and I agree a little more with Coney. Like I kind of agree with both of them in a way.
Yeah.
Um,
It's interesting. Actually, I was listening to the Yankee announcers actually when they were talking about that. It was on I guess Sunday that they were going through it. Um, it's funny. I think it is almost sort of definitional, right? Like I almost look at like things like launch angle and so forth, and that to me, come put it back in maybe military terms, like that's like a tactic, right? So sort of like that's like something you want to do to help you achieve a certain outcome. And it seems like the new age folks, or the pure analytically focused ones, at least in the way it's perceived by maybe everybody else, is sort of like you get this launch angle and you win, right? Like that's the outcome. Like the outcome should be the home run, right? That comes from it, or the ball into the alley, that a bases clearing double, et cetera, things like that. That happens when you put these different pieces together. That you achieve that. That's your strategy, is to hit the ball hard and score the run. But it's like it's so focused on exit velo and launch angle and stuff like that. Like just merely achieving that is going to win it. And it's like that's not the way it works in a game or a campaign or whatever else like that. So that's what I mean. It's almost sort of a bit definitional on that. Like for example, if you just achieve launch angle and exit velo, right, but you hit it to the guy who's positioned for it because the analytics is working on the other side, right? So that's the thing. It's like tactics versus tactics, right? So now it's like then you have the shift, right? So the shift counteracts the the velo and the launch angle by putting your outfielders right where those guys tend to hit it, right? So now you have to do the counter tactic, hitting the other way, bunting, trying to slap the ball down the third baseline and whatnot. That's another tactic to try and win the broader strategy of winning the game. And that's where I think it kind of starts to break down. Like that's where it feels like the old school guys are like, well, this is easy. This is obviously how you would defeat that, right? Is you would go hit the other way, you would steal the base, you would do these other things. If guys are going to shift on you, you're going to attack it back that way. If they're going to do a crazy launch angle and so forth, you're going to bust them up and in because they're not going to be able to get the bat around in time. Like it's tactics versus tactics. And I think the new school guys are just too focused on you achieve X, and like it's a mathematical equation, like you solve for X and you win. And that's not the way it works. That might work against a pitching machine, but if you're going up against thinking humans on the other side, ideally that would be counteracted. So it's a ways to a means to the end, I guess, is a sort of a way to think of it. And like guys keeping track of stuff, right? I mean, Eddie Murray did that forever. Rusty Staub did that forever. Keith Hernandez. I'm like, they all had their books and stuff, right? They all wrote down
Greg
tendencies. They all
Olson.
wrote down.
Greg
Greg
Olson.
Olson, right?
Yeah,
That's
he
exactly right. He
talked
said,
about
like,
it.
I did it like 30
He
years
did
ago.
it.
I just didn't patent it, right?
Yep.
So it's not like they can't go together. They always have, right? Like I mean, even the fascination on numbers and stuff. Like we always want to know how far the home run was hit, right? We always want to know how fast the fastball was. So there's like, it's not like it's a number, therefore it's bad. It's just that when it's solely focused on, you know, like the
Yeah.
outfielder's arm. It's funny, like seeing like the outfielder's arm was the graphic they had on PIX. I was like, yeah, that's actually interesting. Like at first I was like, I was like, okay, I can kind of get that, right? It's somewhat similar to the pitching whenever it says this guy has a stronger arm than that guy, rather than just saying now you can throw a number on it. Okay, so that helps support why you're making a statement rather than just saying he's got a strong arm. You say, well, he throws an average of 86, which is faster than your average outfielder who throws at X. Now it puts it in context and it helps broaden and bring details to the game rather than minutia to the game.
It reminds me if one of the shows I loved. The only thing I didn't like about it was that you couldn't be there that day. But uh, I did the show with former Mariners catcher, Yankee catcher, White Sox catcher. I think he even played for the Reds for a game or two. Scott Bradley, who's been the Princeton University baseball team's coach for the last like 24 years or so. And one of the things that he talked about, so he caught Randy Johnson's first no hitter, and he was talking about Randy Johnson when he got there. Randy Johnson had just come over from the Expos. He was still pretty, he hadn't become Randy Johnson yet, so to speak, as we like to say. Randy Johnson's not Randy Johnson, dog. Okay. So one thing that he talked about, Scott Bradley, was that they would see Randy Johnson. They're like, you're 6'10" and you throw 98. Just get out there and just throw. And Randy would get mad because he wanted to be in all the pitchers meetings and talk tactics and things like that, and how to work guys. And he became a student of the game, and that's ultimately what helped him. Then he was talking about a right-handed version height-wise of Randy Johnson, which is Chris Young, who's the Texas Rangers GM, who came to Princeton and played under Scott and didn't throw as fast as Randy Johnson by any stretch, probably through 10, 12 miles an hour slower, but he was big at 6'10". And Chris Young, he talked about, was pitching in a game against I think it was against the Marlins. And I hope I'm not conflating my stories, but he was saying maybe it was Randy Johnson and not Chris Young. I think this was Randy Johnson that he was talking about. I don't know. Go back. It's another reason for you to go back and hit the follow button or the subscribe or go back on YouTube and listen to this. But now that I think about it, I think he was talking about Randy Johnson because he didn't have Chris Young as a pro. So he's saying the scouting report on the Marlins is that these young Marlins, they all hit, they're all fastball hitters. Like they are fastball hitters through and through. And now that I'm going to keep flip flopping this again, because now that I say it, I think Chris Young was telling him the story about this. So I think I think this is a Chris Young story, because if it's Randy Johnson, he could just throw his fastball.
Throw it anyway, right? Yeah. Chris Young had the big hook.
Right. Chris Young had a hook, but and they're saying, okay, don't throw your fastball. His fastball tops out at like 90. Don't throw your fastball against the Marlins. And, that's all these young guys hit. It was when the Marlins were doing one of their rebuilds. And he's like, yeah, but not my fastball. He's like, no, I'm going to throw them. And he threw for the entire game. He threw all fastballs except 4 pitches and had like a complete game shutout, because what he did was he looked at the guys that were hitting. He saw where the fastballs were. And he's like, oh, if I just elevate the fastballs just out of the zone, it doesn't matter how fast they are. They're going to chase and chase and chase because they all want to hit fastballs. And that's what he did. He just gave him a steady diet of fastballs. That's baseball, right?
Yep.
That's not that's a certain level of analytics, but that's analytics with some common sense and
using as a tactic to achieve this strategy.
tactic.
Yep.
perfect description. It's a tactic. These guys, they see fastballs, right? They hit fastballs. Well, the analytics would tell you don't throw fastballs, don't throw fastballs. He's saying no, that the complete opposite. I want to throw them fastballs because they're gonna keep swinging at fastballs. I'm just gonna put the fastballs where they can't hit it, or just out of reach where even if they hit it, they're not going to do much with it. They'll pop it up, or and if he makes a mistake, he makes a mistake. Fine, but that's it, dog. Like you hit the nail on the head, and it's not talked about enough, and that's why you're the veteran of the day every day.
There we
But
go.
you know, and that's why we love the dog. Now, speaking of which, we started talking about Seattle, and that's where the Yankees are probably getting ready. If they just started their game in Seattle, they lose 2 out of 3 to the Mets. I mean, one of them is just a microcosm of the worst parts of their season, which is, they get to the ninth, they have a 5-4 lead. And I'm sorry, the seventh, because that was a doubleheader the first game. They have a 5-4 lead, and, Chapman comes in. He gives up a home run to Pete Alonso to tie it up. He puts the next 2 runners on base. And now, after, a crappy most part of June month, he gets pulled, and Lucas Litke comes in and he gets lit up, and they lose the game 10-5 or whatever it was. They come back and win the nightcap, so at least they salvage 1 out of the 3. But they drop to 500 for the moment. They go back to 42 and 41 after winning the second game, which becomes the first game of the second half of the season. So we do the combination segment here, Dog, where we talk about, the Yankees going to Seattle with their hats in their hands, and the first half retrospective. They kind of go hand in hand. I mean, I think what we've seen from the Yankees, Dog, over and over, is that they they're a little streaky, but they're not streaky the way you would have expected if you said it before the season that the Yankees are going to be streaky. You'd think, okay, their offense at some point just gets going and they just bludgeon teams and they win, 12 out of 13 because everybody's hitting home runs. Even in their good streaks, it hasn't been like that at all. Their offense just hasn't kicked in much at all for the entire season. And their pitching feels like it's been terrible, and it actually hasn't really been bad at all. For all the flack that he gets, Garrett Cole still has a whip of under 1. He still has an ERA of under 3, and he's still won twice as many games as he's lost. So through 17 starts as of tonight. So spider tack, sticky stuff, whatever. Him and a lot of the rest of baseball have not been as good since they made that change, and it could be because of that. It could also be because maybe hitters are getting a little bit more confident in whatever approaches they've been taking before. Maybe some of these hitters have changed their approach a little bit. Um, and it's probably a combination of both of those things. The pitching really hasn't been much of a problem. It's been inconsistent. The Yankees' real problem is if Chapman is a complete washout at this point. If he's not, and he's had maybe, I don't know if he's been this bad over, a 3-4 week period, but he's definitely had spats in the past where he looks like he has, maybe a dead arm, or, something just a little bit off. And he's been able to work through those times and come back and be a pretty solid guy. Missing Zach Britton really hurts them. But they've had some good guys and good performances in the bullpen outside of those guys. I mean, Chad Green and who's the other guy with the
Lozinga.
mustache? Oh, the Loizaga. No,
Loizaga.
the lefty, uh,
Oh yeah.
Nestor Cortez. Nestor
Yeah.
Cortez. He's quick pitching people. He's fun, and his numbers are good. And he doesn't break a, he can't break a pane of glass. So there's ways that you can win with between those guys. They basically have the double header. They did the Riz Dog move, right? 3 1/3 and 3 2/3, and they got through a double header and with a 4-2 victory when they desperately needed. So they have some, they have some issues there. It just doesn't look like their offense is going to kick in at any point. But at some point, Dog, I think it might not be consistent, but they're going to have a big streak in there where, Stanton and Judge just, I mean, if Stanton gets hot, you've seen what he does, right? I mean, he's
Yep.
one of the few guys that could just carry a team. He's a guy that could do that. Judge, can do that. Um, is LeMahieu going to hit 271 for the whole year and just be not that spark at the top of the lineup? Is Clint Frazier ever going to find his bat? Those become less important questions if the pitching remains good and if they add pitching.
Yeah, it's I mean the biggest surprise to me is the on base for the Yankees, right? So like they're getting some power on there. It's maybe not as much as you could probably expect from them, but it's not outrageously off. But they're just solo homers, right? I mean the thing that the Yankees normally kill you is they burn up your pitchers. They're always on base. And they position themselves for the guy to get that clutch hit or the guy to get the 3-run homer. And the problem is like they're just getting a couple of solo homers, and that's it, and that's simply enough. I mean, you make good points on the pitching. It's actually kind of held up okay. I thought Chapman was actually throwing okay, even against the Mets that he got lit up on. Like he had good pitches, he just wasn't consistent enough, right? So maybe almost remind me a little bit of Diaz in 19, right? He like looked great, then all of a sudden he just grooves one, and he just needs to get that sharpness back again.
Yeah, that's not a bad actually. That's not a bad comparison
Yeah.
to look at Chapman's issues a little bit like Diaz's. I mean, it's definitely,
Yeah. I mean, he's
there's
still pumping
definitely
99,
yeah, there's still,
easy. Yeah.
there's a long ball issue. But in the beginning of the season, he had a couple of his best months to start his this season as he's had in his career.
Yeah.
So, with a guy like that, if maybe he's tipping something, whatever, I
Yeah.
mean, he's certainly providing all the power for these guys when they hit home runs. I mean, you just need to time that thing.
I mean, mentally, it's definitely getting to the guy. I mean, he's kind of saying the right stuff, but I mean, you just see it. I mean, it's a grind on him, and it's hard to be the Yankee closer, right? I mean, you got so spoiled for so long with the best ever out there that it's hard to do it in New York, and most people go through those tribulations. So
And Diaz is a good example. I mean,
yeah,
he's worked through it. He's been able to do that, and now he looks like the guy that they got from Seattle, right? That you were expecting.
yeah.
Um, what's interesting that
Uncle Paul still hates him.
and we'll give people a little.
18 out of 19 still hates him.
We'll give. Should we do a little inside baseball for our
Sure,
dedicated listeners and subscribers and watchers now? So
sure.
we worked on our we did a quick hits before this, and it's in the editing room, and it'll be jazzed up a little bit. Jazz it up, and that's Katie Healy's gonna help us out with that, and you know help us build some of the social media stuff out a little bit. And you'll see this on YouTube. It'll be about a 1 minute video or so. And what we did was we looked at from a Yankee and Met perspective, um, just three things on the quick hit Dog, right?
Yep,
And it
sweet.
and it was and it
and, it,
was
and it was the biggest surprise for each team, the biggest disappointment for each team, and then how we're going to fix the teams with the trade deadline coming up.
and for the Mets.
For the Metsies, we had let's see, should we broaden it out or we keep it focused on?
I think we just give it to people here.
Just give it to people, right?
Yeah.
So so I was kicking around. I was thinking a little bit about the bench mob or stuff like that, but I kind of came down. I was like, honestly, there's one sort of clear takeaway, and that's Taiwan Walker for the Mets. Has been an absolutely tremendous signing, a great answer to a bit of a loaded question coming into Luis Rojas about are you glad you didn't sign Trevor Bauer and stuff? And he said, I'm glad I signed Taiwan Walker. And he's a great person. And that was a home run answer, I will say, for Rojas on that one. Taiwan Walker came in. We thought him as a good solid number 3, number 4 starter. I mean, probably number 4. Maybe you get lucky and get a number 3. Career ERA 3.66, 1.27 WHIP, 35-32 for a career. Perfect, right? I mean, good solid 3 or 4 starter. Comes in this year, 7-3, 2.44 ERA, a WHIP of 1.01, which I think is like number 14 in the in the majors this year, at least among qualifying guys, I guess. So just a tremendous achievement for the Mets, and especially with the loss of Carrasco, Syndergaard not coming back, deGrom missing some starts, even Stroman missing one along the way. He's been an absolute rock for him.
Go back to before the season. Go flip through the episodes right now, and after you're done with this one, go click the one that has Taiwan Walker and Todd Frazier in the title, because we talked about those guys. They signed, they think about the same day. Todd Frazier signed with the Pirates. That didn't work out. Taiwan Walker signed with the Mets. I was all over that. I was pissed that the Yankees did not sign him. Was I not?
You were, and you also told me
I
how to
thought,
pronounce his name, which was pretty cool too.
yeah, I I I
Taijuan.
loved that signing.
Yep.
He showed a lot going down the stretch last year.
Yes,
And
he
it's
did.
not just that. Like, he's not just a good pitcher. Like, he's a clubhouse guy. Like,
Yep.
he fits the clubhouse. The guys like him. He's got a little pizzazz, but he doesn't, he doesn't break the unwritten rules, so to speak. He's not that kind of guy.
Yep.
And why don't you want a guy like that on your team? I mean, I guess there's, he's got a little injury history, whatever, and you're concerned about that. But like, I mean, they signed him what, 2 years? How much? 28 million? Is that what it was, or less?
I don't know. I think it was
Or
less than that.
20?
I think.
Two
Yeah, I
years,
want to say. I want
20
to say like
million?
20, 22, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I
It was.
mean,
It was just like I'm gonna say. It was spot on. It was exactly the value.
oh, hold the phone, Jerome. Can't make it up. 3-run homer, Giancarlo Stanton.
Wow, look at that. Calling it. Nice.
Dog, if I
See,
was
we
any
got some guys on.
if I got calls from the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns to go play for them in the NBA Finals. I'm so hot right now.
Exactly.
I've been hot since this podcast started. Let's face it.
You've nailed a bunch of these.
Oh my God, dude! Wait till you see this home run. It went about 12 feet off the ground. Holy crap!
Laser beam.
Jesus. Wait a minute. Did that hit the upper deck? Holy shit.
Which is pretty good if it was
The
12 feet
upper
off the
deck in
ground.
Seattle on like a straight, there was no, like, it was still going up as he hit it. Oh my God. This guy just crushes the ball.
That's a nice golf shot.
Holy mom. No, it was like belt high. Woo. 3-0
Nice.
Yanks. Road trip off to a good start. We just needed that one against the Mets to get the ship right, baby.
That's it.
Now who's up? Clint Frazier's up. So let's see how this works. Let's see how this works. Okay, so you're
Foreshadowing.
okay. So
All
you
right, so
had
we
your,
move to our disappointment now. So we
or
had.
do I go for my surprise?
Yeah, good. Yeah, go for let's go
So
back.
the-
Let's
so,
mix it up a little bit.
Right. So Dawg did
Well,
the Mets. I did
speaking
the
of
Yankees.
Clint Frazier,
And if you're watching the video, you'll see that Dawg has the Met hat on. I have the Yankee hat on. So that's apropos. But Clint Frazier to me was the surprise, and I had to like, when Dawg gave me the challenge,
had to Riz it. Of
I
course.
had to put the Riz take on it. Like, his surprise was a guy who was, surprisingly good. My surprise was a guy who was surprisingly bad and who just singled to right field. So he just needed that. Folks,
Heard about it.
Can't do play by play. But Frazier with a single to right. Oh no, wait, was that Voit? Oh, it was Voit. I'm used to him batting higher in the order than Stanton. So my disappointment was Clint Frazier, because they need him this year, right? Like, he finally gets his chance. Like, there's nobody pushing him for playing time. It's like, go out and do your thing, dude. And he's got, his amazing bat speed and whatever, and he's gotten the chance and he's just effed it up. Like, he's hitting worse with an opportunity to, like, actually go in there and do it. Like, he's been so much better in all these long stints that he's had. And then this year it's like, you got a job, dude, and like, we need you. We need that bat. And he's just been a letdown. Like, it's really been to the point where it's been surprising. Like, a guy with bat speed like that, you think he'd just be able to hit 250 by accident. You think he'd be popping some home runs by accident. And it's just like, he's like lost. The other thing I thought that was interesting, Dawg, was I think it was John Boyd did one of these videos where they rated every Yankee catch since like 2017, like every outfield catch based on like StatCast or whatever, where there's the percentage chance that they would make this catch. And what was really interesting is, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this probably saw that video because we're in the same space. It's just that they're huge and we're not. But
Yes.
the interesting thing to me is that you'll see Clint Frazier make a ton of diving, quote unquote, spectacular catches. And then you see like the percentage chance that he would have caught it. And it's like, oh, 75%, it's like a medium catch. Like it wasn't that difficult of a catch. And like then, Judge is making some catches that don't look as good. And it's like, wow, that was like a super difficult one. So it is interesting, like that when you watch that and you see, you're like, wow, just because a guy makes a diving catch doesn't mean that like he's a great outfielder or he's better than somebody that's not making a diving catch. And I think that's been one of the debates with a guy like Frazier too. The flip side of it is sometimes when a guy makes a diving catch like that, that's more spectacular looking than it is spectacular in real life, it pumps your team up. And that's something that they would need also from Frazier because he's that kind of guy. He's the kind of guy that pumps you up when he gets, a hit or, there's a single and he legs it into a double or a double and he legs it into a triple or he makes a diving catch, he hits a wall, something like that, like on defense. And they haven't had it from him at all. And now, of course, he's injured again, which has been another issue for him. So he was my surprise, not in a good way. Then I think, Dog, we went over to the disappointment, right? And I'll just keep going on this turn, so we'll just
Speaking of
serp-
continued disappointment,
we'll ser- we'll serpentine. And I went with a curveball and the disappointment too. My disappointment for the Yankees was DJ LeMahieu. And here's why. As he has gone since the Yankees signed him as a free agent from the Rockies, as DJ LeMahieu has gone, so have the Yankees gone. And he was great for the couple of years that they had him. Certainly an integral part of making them a successful team, a playoff team with World Series aspirations and a legit contender. And they signed him at, an age 31 season year to a 6-year deal worth $90 million. Now, granted, it's $15 million a season, which is, that by itself is, that's kind of bargain
significant. Yeah.
for a guy that would hit like that. But you're certainly paying him for the end year. So it's sort of a reasonable contract in terms of money per year, but it's not a good idea necessarily when you're talking about the years at the end of it, where if he's still hitting the way he's hit the last couple of years, you'll be able to find some kind of position for him. But
If
he
he's hitting
just
270 a year one, that's a little
right. He's hitting
daunting.
he comes into this game 271, 342 on base, 720 slug as OPS. And he hasn't given them that spark at the top of the lineup. He hasn't gotten those big hits. He hasn't gotten those team slump busting type hits that he would get where you're like, "Oh man, the Yankees are really waning. They really need something. They need somebody to pick them up," and boom, like then he comes up with a double or he grounds a ball through the hole on the opposite side, or against the Astros a few years ago, they're down to their last bit of life and boom, he hits a home run, and you're like, holy crap, DJ LeMahieu of all people hits a home run. So like he's been that guy for them, and now he has the contract, and he just he didn't have his usual first half that they expect him to have. And to me, that makes him if he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink a little bit. He's not the straw that stirs the drink, but he's the pitcher that pours the drink. I don't know, something like that. Like he's something, like he's the catalyst that gets the fire going. And they need him to be that guy. And if he's not going to be that guy, until he is that guy, I don't think that you're going to see these streaks where they just bludgeon people. Stanton could do things like he did tonight, and he hits that 3-run homer, and maybe they just run away and just win the game. But um, to me, that's why I gave LeMahieu, maybe a little controversially, a little bit of a disappointment of the year, and a year of many disappointing guys in the Yankees. that's why I made him my disappointment of the first half.
All right, there we go. So I'll take on over to the Mets side, and I'm going to say no surprise on my disappointment is Francisco Lindor's bat. Right, so Lindor, obviously, the big contract, face of the franchise, has been tremendous in terms of on field and off the field, taking charge of the team. Um, great clubhouse guy, fantastic fielding out there, has been a huge difference maker. The Met defense overall is just night and day from what it was 2 years ago, and that really helped bridge some of the weakness that you've seen in the pitching staff with guys getting injured and so forth. To be able to get middle of the road pitchers continue to have good results because the defense has been there to kind of bail them out. But Lindor coming in, you fear he's probably going to have to boil a little bit on there, but a career of 280 and 820 OPS, hitting an OPS on there. And this year he's hitting 219 with an OPS of 676. So clearly not getting it done. He's actually ticking himself up into just bad versus horrific that he was probably the first 2 months or so. So if you want to look on the positive side on there, but yeah, clearly, I mean, he's not, and he's still, I will say one knock on Luis, maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't, but still sitting there in the 2-hole, hitting 219 the 2-hole, and not a ton of on base. He does have some speed, but that's a tough one for it, and that's definitely held back the Met offense. I guess the positive has been his fielding's good enough. He actually has a WAR of 1.58, which is pretty much all plus from his fielding. He'd clearly be a negative on the hitting. So that's a positive one for him. I don't think it's a disaster in the long term, but for the first half, clearly Francisco's bat has been a disappointment.
But we should mention that to me, he's impressed me, and he's lived up to some degree of his contract early on. I mean, it's it's such a huge contract for so many years, but like he's proven to me that he doesn't have to hit to lead the team.
Yep.
I mean, he's every time there's an important mound conversation, every time somebody makes an error, whether it's him or somebody else, or there's a bad play that didn't go their way, he's there and he's talking and he's calming people down. He's getting people together. He's either calming them down when they need to be calm, that he's firing them up when they need to be fired up, and that stuff is he's a coming in and this is his first year with the team. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
not like
he's clearly the field general already, and
yeah.
that's a big positive to have him on there. So,
And you have some personalities on that team.
yeah,
I mean, this is
and
looks
they're
like it's
responding to him. You can
and
tell it's not fake, it's real.
you
So,
have this was thought to be Pete Alonso's team. You have guys that are good clubhouse guys there like Dominic Smith. You have Jeff McNeil, who kind of has the Paul O'Neill temperament. It looks like, right? I mean,
yep,
and so you have a few guys in there like that, and of course, you have deGrom, who's a totally different animal, right? So, um, for him to be able to step into that has been quite something, and he's on a winning team. They're a first place team, and he hasn't even hit yet. And I say yet because I think he's going to hit, but hell, I mean, it could, we've seen strange things where a guy has a crappy offensive season, and that ends up being the year that he leads them to the promised land. And then, other years he'll maybe win an MVP or something like that, and the team will be 500. So who knows?
yep,
Whatever he's doing is working enough. And but yes, his bat is. I mean, but now, talk. You know what? I was going to call you on this too. He's that game. Um, what was it? The Braves game, right? He bunted. He had a sacrifice bunt that
yep,
led to the run that basically won the game.
yep,
And he's up to like I think he's got more sacrifice bunts than any non-pitcher in the majors this year. So he's I mean he's doing that,
yeah,
right? I mean
yep,
there's something to that. They're playing small ball
yep.
when with him when they need to. And then what about I mean we've talked about this a little bit before, but your move to fix,
Yeah, I mean, even though you would think, kind of on the surface that the offense has been kind of disappointing for the Mets, there's to me there's I thought about trying to go for third base. That's sort of like the the kind of obvious one that feels like you could go for the upgrade there for the offense. Chris Bryant obviously would be a great fit on there.
Oh,
Big
by the way, you're
contract.
by the way, your tweet totally fooled Uncle Paul.
Oh
He
yeah,
was like a speculative tweet that the Mets would get Chris Bryant, and Uncle Paul's
yes.
like, what happened? The Mets got Chris Bryant? No, no,
I
no.
was kind of playing along with Riz with the Cub focus, but the I actually think for the Mets with the injuries that they had in the rotation, the setback with Syndergaard, I do think actually shoring up the pitching is actually the bigger move, and I think it's the easier one to fit. Frankly, so I was looking around, the Cubbies, the Rockies, etc., Diamondbacks. It's like I looked at the depth chart on roster resources, I guess on the or MLB depth chart roster resources. Look at the Diamondbacks; they only had 3 starting pitchers listed,
Oh my God.
which I think was the first time I've seen that. That was pretty funny. So I'm like, none of those guys are getting it done. But so then I hopped back to the Rockies. It seemed like a sort of obvious one on there. I thought about Herman Marquez. Feels like he's the number one for the Rockies. I'm not. That's always tough to pry away. So I'm like, that's that'd be great if you could get him, but it's probably going to cost a little too much unless you just really get the Rockies in moron mode. So so my thought was actually go for John Gray. It was a guy they signed for 1 year, 6 million. It was a good signing by him. He's pitched to a 1.24 WHIP, 0.8 WAR for the year. Basically steady Eddie, right? Kind of like we were talking before with Taiwan Walker, kind of what you thought he was going to kind of be. Now that Taiwan's stepped up to be a great number 3, it could be a 2 or 1 on other teams, frankly. So Gray kind of gives you that balance back. It fills in for like Peterson falling back, losing Lucchese, um, some of the other guys that they've had out. Gives you a little bit more depth in case Carrasco has another setback. Hopefully he's getting back in another couple weeks, but no certainty there. And Syndergaard sounds like early September, maybe, right? I mean, who knows? He's doing some lawn toss again, but you really can't kind of count him on that. I was thinking about trying to get someone who had another year to kind of give you a little more flexibility in the offseason with Stroman and Syndergaard, and nobody really jumped out to me. It's like a really sort of obvious one that wouldn't cost you more in picks or in prospects. And the Mets, frankly, just aren't really in that sort of position yet. So I'd rather use Uncle Steve's wallet in the offseason and hold on to the talent in the farm system at this point, and just go out and get me a rental.
Well,
So that was it.
my go, as I emphasized many times on this show, but I will again, is I look, I love Luke Voigt. I think he's great. I'm having arguments with my neighbor Paul. He's like, Luke Voigt's great, and he doesn't cost you anything. And why do you want to get rid of him? I'm like, I don't really want to get rid of him, but I kind of like can use him as a chip to get something else that I need that fits the puzzle a little bit better. And there hasn't been enough emphasis on the way the puzzle fits together
Yep,
in the
100%.
Yankee lineup. And you need a left hand in the lineup that you have. Look, Judge is not going anywhere. They could make up all the trade rumors that they want. The Yankees are not trading Aaron Judge. So if you see a tweet that has a rumor about, oh, what could, this team give you for Aaron Judge? And the Aaron Judge could, the Yankees could do really well if they traded Aaron Judge for blah, 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 blah. Unfollow the person. I don't care who the fuck it is. Unfollow them. They don't know what they're talking about. The guy's not going anywhere. He's the face of the franchise, and the franchise is the Yankees. And he hits. He plays defense. He plays offense. He
Great
doesn't get
defense.
in, he doesn't get in trouble. Okay, he's not going anywhere. So if you see that, just unfollow the person or block them or whatever, and then make sure you follow me at Diamond Diehards and the dog at Jeff Healy 8 because we won't give you any of that bullshit. We'll just make
Riz,
sure.
real quick, on that with Judge and the defense, that was really eye popping. I thought in the Mets when they were having the big rally in the 7th inning of that game, and how many balls were hit to Judge that would have driven in 2 all the time, and the Mets had to go station to station
Yep.
each one. I mean, now they kept doing it, but Judge single handedly held them back from at least 2 to 3 runs
Right.
just
And
in that half inning.
you put your position in your pitcher in position where now if he could just make one pitch or do something, you can get out of a big inning. And
Yep.
it didn't work out that way. But yeah, that's the
He did
point. He's
everything he
not
could.
going anywhere. He's
Yeah.
not going anywhere.
Yep.
Stanton's not going anywhere because they can't get rid of him. Now, if they could get rid of him, that would be one thing. And you're going to be stuck with him, which is an interesting thing to say about a guy who could just, go crazy and end up with 50 home runs by the end of the year. If he does that, then you have no problem whether he's righty, lefty, switch, doesn't matter. But the issue is that he's right-handed, and he and Judge are going to be in the middle of your lineup. So you have all these other spots, right? You have the potential for center field, you have the potential for left field, and you have some guys there. You still have Frazier. You got to do something with him. You have Aaron Hicks. He's hurt. He's not going to be back for the rest of the year, but you're going to have him in future years still. And there might be some things that you could do there, but those are not going to be solutions that you could really address soon compared to these others. If you have Luke Voigt and you have Glaber Torres, those are guys that they're not making any money, and they generally have either produced or have shown they can produce at high levels, and other teams would be willing to give you something if you were putting guys like that in the deal. And if you can turn some combination of Luke Voigt and Glaber Torres and maybe something else into Anthony Rizzo first and Jose Ramirez from the Indians second, Gio Urshela can play shortstop as well as Glaber Torres can. And I think probably if he was playing there every day, he probably would be even a little bit better defensively. And offensively, at the moment, they're a wash. Does Torres have, a much higher ceiling? Yes. But that's the reason why if you're giving him away, you could get something for him.
Yep.
Now, all of a sudden, if you have Rizzo at first, Ramirez at third, who's a switch hitter, you have a lefty in the middle of your lineup, you have a switch hitter in the middle of your lineup. They're both impact players. They're both good in the clubhouse. Rizzo can be front and center in New York. He can handle New York. It's not going to be an issue. And now you've added much better balance to your lineup. You've actually gotten even better defensively than you are, because he's an upgrade over Voigt. Ramirez and Urshela is a better left side of the infield than Urshela and Torres probably, because both of those guys are going to be, plus defenders at third, meaning Urshela and Ramirez are both, very good defenders. Urshela's a little bit better, but at short, I think you're winning that too. So those guys are also impending free agents. If you want to sign them for the future, they might cost you something. They might not cost you as much, but if you get them in here, it's probably easier to sign or decide if you're going to go after guys like that. Um, this American League East is, these teams are playing well. These teams are not world beaters. I mean, the Red Sox have overperformed what they have. They have a great manager, and they have a lot of pieces, and they're ahead of schedule. But if the wheels start falling off, Boston's a tough place to be, and they're going to hit a streak at some point. And if the Red Sox losing streak coincides with the Yankee winning streak, guess what? The pressure is just going to keep doubling upon itself. Tampa is Tampa. They'll probably be, right there at the end. And, the Blue Jays are a comer, and just made a deal on this Tuesday, July 6th. They traded Rowdy Tellez, and they bolstered their bullpen. So I imagine the Blue Jays are going to try to start maybe making deals to get arms, and they're a team to worry about. But it's not a hill that you can't surmount. They've been in this position before, but are they going to be able to do it with the current makeup? I'm not sure about that, but I think if they made a couple of moves like this, they could. I think they definitely could. I think it would add a lot of life to the fan base. I think you get more people going to the games and being excited about going to the games instead of people like my buddy Mike Sappho, who doesn't even want to watch him on TV and goes and leaves the country and goes to Germany for a week because he doesn't want to look at him. So um, that's my little piece about that dog. And we teased it. You'll see it. It'll be the quick hits video. And if you get the benefit of checking this out first, then you heard the full thing. And you'll only have to spend a minute 10 of your time looking at that. But we encourage you to grab that, share it, and that'll be a good way to tell people about Diamond Diehards. Whether you see that on YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram, Facebook, wherever you see it, we'll start doing a little more of these shorts, and we'll expound a bit upon these topics on the full shows with us. All right, so that is going to do it for a Tuesday night kind of live. And we're going to wrap it there. Mets Yankees version. Hopefully, the Yankees, the next time we come on this show, will have won like 7 in a row. For the Dog, Jeff Healy, this is Joe Rizzo. Diamond Diehards is out.